Folks, frankly, this is what happens when we celebrate and encourage weakness and frailty. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings and welcome to this Friday's program. We're almost there. 3-day weekend, dead ahead. I will be off on Monday and see you all again Tuesday at 1 o'clock. So just be aware if you don't hear me on Monday. I'll be back. But here's what I'm getting at. Look, even before the tragic shooting in Minneapolis, I was here talking to you about the frailty of the left. I was playing clips of individuals who were melting down over mere political disagreements. Okay. And well, it plays into the shooter. Of course it does. Because the more we find out, the more we realize that this is an actual honest to goodness mental health crisis that is taking hold of our country. And the problem is that the left has created it, one, has rewarded it and sought its expansion, and now want to deny any of the possible root causes because, of course, this in turn creates a scrutiny and would potentially, cut into public support for the Democratic Party. I hate to be cynical about it, folks, but it's true. If you're a wackadoodle, emotionally fragile human being, you are many times more likely to be a reliable Democratic voter. And this is precisely why universities and some schools, starting around the time that I was going through the system, call it some 20, 25 years ago, that schools began doing this ridiculous catering to kids' mental health. Now, that's how it was billed as. It was presented as being positive, as being encouraging. It was sold to us as something necessary in order to further the development of young people and make them healthier in our society. It actually did the exact opposite. The more we spoke about mental health, the more kids got therapy, the more kids were given a pass if they were stressed or felt pressure or were overly stimulated by some fact. In a history class, for example, trigger warnings were issued. You can't talk about that thing in history because it might distress little Johnny. Of course, little Johnny's 20 years old. And 100 years prior, little Johnny would be working on the family farm from the time he was 12. At 20, he would be having his own family. We are regressing as a society. And we're doing it at the behest largely of the left. Now, I'll say this, that conservatives play a role in this to the extent that we have allowed as conservatives, the left to do this. And the self-examination, the self-reflection that needs to happen right now is that enough is enough. And it's, perhaps a day late to really begin turning the ship around, but we must. Now, the more I hear about this particular shooter in Minneapolis, this troubled young man who thought he was a girl, whose parents, it seems, encouraged him in this endeavor, supported him, as is popular and in vogue right now, I realize that this is somebody who really just needed strong parenting. This is someone who needed tough love. But this is likely someone, and we'll know more as facts come out. And by the way, there's a lot of stuff out there. For example, I'm seeing in certain places that the father was a CIA operative or a contractor or source. It's unsubstantiated. I'm not going to get into all of that yet. And I suspect by the time Monday rolls around, we'll know a lot more and have confirmation of some of these things. The mother still, as of the last word that I have here, has not been cooperating with authorities. She's lawyered up. I'll get more into that in a moment. But I'm terribly interested, I'm not going to lie, in this young man's family. And I'm also terribly interested in the overall mental health, if we're going to use the term, the overall mental health of leftists. Because from my personal experience, and I know a lot of kids, I've got 3 kids of my own, they have friends, their friends have friends. We have a house that kids come to and hang out in. So I'll tell you, there is an enormous difference from my personal experience between the children of conservatives and the kids of liberals. And the reason for this, the reason that the liberal kids are less resilient and have more, I don't know how to put this quite nicely, but just are a little weaker overall, is because the parents encourage their, these various emotional responses to everything. They encourage it. It's considered a bonus. Now, the trans thing falls into this. A common sense family looks at a little girl who says, I think I'm a boy, and goes, honey, you're not a little boy. You're a little girl. If you want to dress differently, I'm okay. You're a tomboy. That's fine. But the tale is old as time, but you're not. We're not going to go put you on a course of treatment, so-called gender-affirming care, that will result in your, essentially, in your chemical castration. We're not going to do that. And that is right there. And this is a lot of talk in our history about privilege and white privilege and all this stuff, money versus no money. Your biggest privilege in life today as a kid comes from whether or not you were born to common sense parents. If your mom and your dad have their heads screwed on straight, you have so much more opportunity in life, and you will be so much happier than if your parents are catering to your every emotional whim, and they themselves are obviously weakened by their own ideology. Now, look, a lot of stuff right now circulating, a lot of people out there, a lot of leftists, transgender activists, whatever, putting up videos of themselves where they are celebrating this massacre. They're saying, good on you. Good that these little kids died. It's the right thing to have happened because the Catholics have done bad things to the trans community. The Catholics, read conservatives, have done bad things to the queer community, the gay community, on and on. In other words, this was all okay because it was justified, because this is a war. And even before this happened, before the shooting occurred, I was here on this program telling you that there's a fundamental problem going on in this country where there are people among us who want to harm us simply because of our opinion. Now, 4 years of Joe Biden wrecking this country, going after my president, putting fellow Americans in jail over nothing. You never heard me here on air go, God, I really could just put a bullet in Joe Biden. It was absurd. I was actually on air going, I hope nothing happens to him because as bad as Joe Biden is, Kamala Harris is worse. I think I said a variation of that phrase every single day or week, certainly, that I was on air. I didn't want to impeach the guy. But it's not how I think, and it's not how most conservatives think. It's not how any conservatives I know think. We value life. And death penalty is reserved for the most heinous of offenses and crimes. We do not take life in an unjustified way. And the idea that we would target and kill and advocate for the murder or celebrate the murder of the children of our political adversaries is insane to even think about. But that's where we're at right now. Because the kids who were given an emotional pass, the kids whose every feeling and hurt self moment of feeling blue and down was catered to, have grown up. Now they're adults. They're my contemporaries. They have no idea how to wrestle with their emotions, how to deal with negative thoughts. And at the same time, they're heavily propagandized by a media that has an agenda instead of just reporting the news. They're programmed to hate. Now, yes, I put that on the media, but ultimately, I'm a person who believes in individual responsibility. I blame the parents. And as the kids grow up, I blame the kids. I blame the adults who cannot recognize in themselves this fundamental problem. I don't know how you go from being a person growing up as a kid to suddenly putting videos of yourself out there celebrating the death of kids. I don't know how you go from, I don't know how you get there. I can't wrap my head around it. But I think this obsession with transness that we're seeing everywhere in the left, this obsession with a mental illness, is really, it's not particular to the trans issue. It's not specific to that. It's just one more element of the cover-up to dangerous mental illness that the left does. They pretend that our kids, their kids in particular, are mentally well. They don't want to admit that it's something to treat. They don't want to admit it's something to fix. So they end up affirming it, just like they do every other emotional failing. And that, my friends, is going to lead to much more disaster and mayhem in the years to come. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Back in a moment. Don't go anywhere this hour of the program of the What's Right Show, brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam & Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. The What's Right Show, brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, is on. Okay, folks, let me tell you. By the way, I don't. It's a big to-do this morning as I woke up and looking at the news, and apparently Donaldus Maximus had the audacity to rescind, take away Kamala Harris's Secret Service protection. And the left is up in arms about this. Now, I'm bringing this up certainly because I mentioned how much the left wants to harm us, certainly wants to harm Trump. We have the trans shooter in Minneapolis with all sorts of menacing phrases on his weaponry. The weaponry, the menacing was kill Trump, right? I mean, pretty on the nose. So anyway, this thing came up today with Kamala Harris having her Secret Service detail pulled. And, number one, I'm not certain how many people out there really want Kamala Harris dead. Besides Jill Biden, of course. Well, if looks could kill, Jill would have killed Kamala a long time ago if her stare was actually lethal. I talked to a lot of Republicans, and I can tell you each and every one of them, me included, would be delighted if Ms. Harris were to run again in 2028. Producer Robbie is nodding. Yes, we would be delighted. If Trump really was cynical, he would protect Kamala Harris for the rest of her life in the off chance that she returns to some political viability in the Democratic primaries. But I digress. The statute says 6 months. And Biden, I guess, somehow extended it for her a little bit, and that was Trump's decision to overturn it. So he did. By the way, Pence lost his detail in July of 2021, 6 months after leaving the administration. And you'd think, right, that the left, knowing that Pence had stood up for democracy and had stared down MAGA at the Capitol on January 6th and had been threatened by Orange Hitler himself, that the left would have seen fit to extend his Secret Service protection. They did not. So right now, you all can cry more tears for me. I don't care. Now, you know, by the way, I think that this whole when I say the media is the problem, okay, the media. I'm watching all of these interviews, talking to various people about the shooter, and they're just obsessed about the pronoun thing. They're hung up on it. Now, I'm calling the guy a guy because he's a guy. He's born male. He's male. I'm not going to participate in the delusion. Now, some people have taken great issue with this and have emailed me some interesting things. By the way, sam@whatsrightshow.com is my email. @whatsrightsam on X, formerly known as Twitter. You need to follow me there if you don't already. Trust me. Good content that I myself put together and post. And I interact with some of you there too, and I love that. So go on X, go on Twitter. Nonetheless, so I got some nasty grams about this. That's fine. But I'm gonna call him, you know, what he is. I mean, it's a guy. Now the media is obsessing over this. I would like the media to obsess about the dead kids. I'd like the media to obsess about how it is that this young man had a mental health visit by the police. This just got reported, NBC News covering this, had a mental health visit, and then nobody did anything after that. There's no follow-up. I have this sneaking suspicion that the more we learn about this, a particular pattern will emerge. Something similar to the Nashville shooting, which is to say that we're going to find out that the authorities tiptoed around a ticking time bomb because he was trans. They didn't want to touch it. It's become a no-go zone. It's a third rail, you know, like the electrified track, right? That's the expression. Touch the third rail. That's where the power goes, and zap, you're dead. People just don't want to get near it. And we're going to save lives by talking about it. We're going to save lives by normalizing a compassionate view of transness, which is to say, we're going to say to an individual that says they're trans, we're going to say, I understand you're going through things. Just like we would have compassion for someone who has alcoholism, or maybe cancer even, or any kind of malady or problem or difficulty that they're going through. Of course, we're going to be compassionate. This isn't hate, but it's reality. We will not play along with whatever that person's kabuki theater going on in their head is. Not going to do it. Because one of the risks is that it becomes such a sacred topic and such a taboo topic to question it, that then when there are problems, you can't say, I'm just telling you, I know that Minneapolis is a very progressive city. That is a fact. And that's one of the kind of sort of ancillary stories that's developing here, that they're figuring out that Minneapolis just is even worse than we could even imagined. So you know that the social services that are involved are not going to want to call the trans kid crazy. Trans isn't crazy. Trans is beautiful. Trans is wonderful. Trans is great. Trans is normal. No social worker in a blue city wants to sign off on the trans kid being bananas. But you and I, common sense folk, look at a trans kid and we right away know that person is nuts. by the way, I was reflecting on this early this morning. My law school class, there was one kid that I'm convinced, looking back at it, would shoot up the whole class. 100%. And fun fact, 2 years later, he ended up coming out as trans. I'm not saying, just letting you know this. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Making radio great again. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT on the What's Right Media Network. Welcome to today's beautiful program. The emails are coming in already, Robbie. sam@whatsrightshow.com is my email. I am not advocating for any kind of hate or retribution or harm, certainly, to the trans community. And by the way, I even just, can I rephrase that? I mean, there's a community of people that obviously think they are a different gender. Maybe there's a community of people out there who think that they are animals. By the way, there are. It's called furries. And they have conventions, and they get together. They prance around. They make noises. They wear masks. They go out this way in public. Now, personally, I have to tell you something. When I see a furry occasionally, particularly here in beautiful downtown Las Vegas, we have something called First Friday. They're always there, which I actually admire their dedication to it, because even at night in the summer, it's 105, and they're out there in these furry costumes. Now, do I look at that and do I laugh? Yes, of course. It's funny, because this is a grown person who thinks that they're an animal. Well, I'm always going to be honest with you. Okay, so there you go. But it's a community of people, and they share something that they do that I think is crazy. Is it crazy? Objectively? Yes. Is the idea that you were born in the wrong body a mental condition, or something that we ought to celebrate as a society and give you, throw you parties and give you affirmations and support you, et cetera, et cetera? That's the divide right now between the common sense people on this planet and the people that are crazy themselves. We have to put our foot down on this. This is not me being or lacking compassion in any way. I just don't believe in affirming somebody's mental illness. I don't think that is conducive for a healthy and strong society. Now, going back to where I started at the top of the hour, for those of you just joining us, the left desperately wants people who are weak. The left advances the trans ideology and other things too, in an effort to make people, well, more emotionally fragile, right? More emotionally fragile. And emotionally fragile people are less likely to be able to take care of themselves, are typically more dependent on government protection. Now, government protection is something that the Democrats run on, right? That's the campaign promise that they give. They say, well, we're gonna protect you. We're gonna take care of you. We're gonna provide you with safety and security. We're gonna lock up all those mean MAGA people. And so, this is a place of power for the Democratic Party. Very important to understand this. This is why every Democrat right now is talking about nothing other than trans. Like, for example, the mayor, Mr. Frey of Minneapolis, the guy that I guess in the primaries was bested by the Somalian pirate. Now there's some dispute as to the outcome of that election. Maybe there was some cheating. Gosh forbid that would ever happen in a Democrat-run city. Anyway, this is the mayor doing interviews 36 hours after a bunch of kids were attacked in a church at their school. 2 kids dead, many grievously injured. And this is what we're focusing on.
Anybody who is using this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any other community out there has lost their sense of common humanity. We should not be operating out of a place of hate for anyone.
Yeah, this is the most important message the Democratic Party has for you. Yeah, I mean, by the way, no thoughts and prayers. Don't pray for the kids, because they were literally praying. Gavin Newsom wrote this on his Twitter account. They were literally praying. Guess the thoughts and prayers. Guess prayer doesn't work. You silly religious rubes. Pay attention, by the way, to all the condescension that occurs, because, you know, the level of condescension and hate that they have for us far exceeds any objective questioning that we have of their mental illness. A lot of this is projection. So Frey continues. Again, this is where he goes from there.
When you spoke about this so profoundly and powerfully as you are even here now, but when you spoke about this today publicly, you voiced concern for the transgender community, for the community overall. And obviously, you chose to do that in that moment because you thought it was important. And I wanted to give you a chance to say why you felt it was important to do that in that moment.
Obviously, I've heard about the rhetoric and the narrative that is being pushed out, but here's the thing. Anybody that is going to use this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any community has lost touch with a common humanity.
Okay. And he's looking all solemn. This is a tee-up question, right, from CNN. Am I missing something here? Did we just have a trans, radical, fanatic, nut job go in and kill little kids? Sorry, in the context of what's going on, who gives a rat's rear end about the trans community? The trans community attacked the Christian community, the Catholic community. That's literally what happened. But of course, I'm not surprised by any of this, because the left is praying for Hamas after Hamas attacked Israel and murdered little children in cold blood. And we have Palestinian flags now everywhere and liberals wearing keffiyehs. That's who the left is. Folks, I'm just trying to connect the dots here for you. These people are insane. And so just as we have a leading politician in Minnesota, right? This is the mayor of the most populous city in Minnesota, going on, wow, it's all about the trans community and all about this. The trans. Meanwhile, there's dead kids attacked by a transsexual crazy person. You have adults around the country posting videos about how this was good. We got him. We got him. This is good. Well, one of the nicer ones that I found was this guy dressed up as a woman, wearing lipstick and whatnot. I'm just sharing this with you because it's radio, in case you can't see the video. If you're watching on the podcast, of course, you can see the video, but most of you can't. So anyway, here's this is one is an example of some of the stuff that's out there, and I'm sharing this because we need to understand what is out there. Danelle Harvin, this is a X channel called Shell Shock, and it's one of these they thems. Have a listen.
I feel terrible for the kids. I feel so bad for not just the victims, but the people who witnessed it and will now have to live with that for the rest of their lives. I don't feel bad for their parents. This happened at a Catholic school. There should have been no children there at all. We know what the church does to kids, so I feel terrible for the kids. May the universe protect them from their Catholic parents and the church. Y'all can shove your thoughts and prayers right where the brightest of the suns don't shine.
So anyway, may the universe protect them from their Catholic parents. They're celebrating. This person is celebrating attack on a Catholic church. Why? Are Catholics going around murdering trans people? No. Catholics believe that men are created as men, women are created as women, have traditional notions of family. And that's the threat. Let's back away from this as a trans topic, by the way. Remember what I said last week. Liberals, the left, has gotten to the point where they view as a physical threat, a call to arms, disagreement. Our country, the United States of America, is built on disagreement. Our founding fathers, if you read the history of the time, had profound and strong disagreements among each other. One of the hallmarks of American open society is being able to debate, to have conversation. What I don't like, what I really, really resent, actually, if I have to be honest about it, is being told by the other side that topic is no-go. You can't even talk about it, or else you're a transphobe. You can't even ask that question. Sam, you can't say somebody who is trans is mentally ill. Otherwise, that is war on transness, and you are now a target. How is this any different from Nazism or communism or any other violent ideology that seeks to maintain its power through the use of force? I mean, it's really not at the end of the day. And that's why you'll see so much of this violent, militaristic imagery being used by these trans activists. Knives, guns, a call to arms. You'll see that kind of imagery by the haters of Trump against ICE. It's a matter of time before we have more and more and more attacks on law enforcement officers. By the way, I got more of this when we come back. I have to take a break. It's a problem, folks. Trust me, these people are bananas. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Well, here's another one, right? Here's another video that somebody posted to the internet. And this one actually is even worse than the one I played just before. Sam Mirejovsky here, behind the What's Right microphone, making radio great again. Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. here on the What's Right Radio Network. Okay, let's, I'll play this. The guy is sitting here. He looks to be about, I don't know, maybe about 60. He's got a pride flag, rainbow flag background, and he's celebrating. He's actually celebrating the massacre that occurred in Minneapolis this week.
And you know what? There's going to be a lot more of that coming up. You know, especially at these religious areas, you know, hey, we've had enough of your kind coming after public schools, right? It's about time, churches and Catholic schools and religious schools, it's about time they get their turn. That's what I think. I'm just going to sit back and watch people do it. And I'm going to laugh. I'm laughing about yesterday. You guys want to laugh about us? We're going to laugh about you.
I'm starting to think that they're all mentally ill, not just the trans ones. This is crazy. That's no laughing matter. It's not a joke. These people need to be rounded up and put in mental asylums. You want to stop school shootings? I have an idea. If a kid gets out and starts getting out of whack, send him into inpatient treatment. Maybe we take the gender-affirming care money and invest it in psychiatric help. Real psychiatric help for kids that need it, for people that need it. Hell, even adults. I saw this online here. Posts like this are everywhere, right? There's every day is Trans Day of Vengeance. And it has, in my opinion, what looks like a masculine hand with red fingernails, like French manicure tip fingernails. Okay. Holding a blade. Not very safely, though. Okay. It looks like they're going to get cut themselves. Okay. And it says here, this is the quote. This was out on X, on Twitter. Stop being a nice queer. Take off the kid gloves. They want you dead, and you're worried about being polite. Start acting like your life is on the line, because it is. At what point do these exhortations to violence cross the First Amendment line? At what point do these threats gain the immediacy, that required to perhaps have people and authorities begin to step in? I'm the line of First Amendment guy. I'm just pointing out this is the stuff that people are writing out there. And it's scary in light of the fact that obviously we now know that the shooter in Minneapolis was influenced by this. Now, here's perhaps my most important point. I don't think we can change the left. I don't think we're going to be able to convince the gentleman whose video I played for you moments ago that his laughter, his delight that Catholic kids were murdered, I don't think we're going to convince him to have a heart, to relax, to think about a different viewpoint here. So what we need to do as conservatives, but also as just common sense people, is to not give in. Now, Mike Cernovich, early in the week, pointed something out that I wasn't aware of, even though I have a couple friends at the network. Apparently, there's a lady in the HR department at Fox News in New York, in headquarters, who has a trans kid, and she then berates everybody for saying anything bad about trans. Everybody's terrified of her, including on-air talent, not just the producers, not just staff, everybody. So I witnessed something on the 5 that I want to play for you. Now, I said that first part about the Fox News lady because it could be the reason for this, but we as conservatives cannot pay lip service anymore to the trans indoctrination and the trans ideology. We have to understand that this is a problem and it's dangerous. These people are dangerous and they're crazy. And so here was, and this just, what was this, Robbie? It was just the other day. Kennedy was a former MTV host, conservative gal, talking on Wednesday. So this was 2 days ago on Fox's The 5. And listen to what is said here.
Do you think there could have been something done if someone changes their name and thinks they're another gender? Would you not have them have access to weapons?
No, I think there are trans people who are stalked and they are terrorized and they worry about their own self-protection and they deserve to protect themselves. I worry about someone who has ever gone to the doctor and says, I feel a little anxious. Can you prescribe me some Xanax for a plane? And then all of a sudden their name goes on some federal database. Yeah, and they can never get a weapon to defend themselves. There are plenty of laws keeping good people from buying guns and ammunition. We talked to Joe, our local sporting goods guy, and, he's furious that people who deserve to protect themselves and their families, for people who enjoy sporting life, that they are not capable to go in and buy a weapon without some sort of registry. Yes, this person was mentally ill. It's not the trans part. It's the part that he was absolutely, completely evil.
It's not the trans part. It's that he was just this evil guy. Now, I give Kennedy props for using the right pronoun. Now, I'm a Second Amendment guy. So I am resistive to really limitations on, excessive limitations on the ownership and possession of guns. It's the left that has traditionally sought to keep guns away from mentally ill people. And I'm inclined to say that's generally a good policy. Somebody has a mental condition, maybe they shouldn't have a gun, right? Now, is thinking that you're in the wrong gender a mental condition? Right? When we start to affirm mental conditions, let's just move on to schizophrenia. Let's give schizophrenic guns. Let's give people who think they're God guns. Let's give all sorts of crazy people guns. Why did the left-wing ideology carve out this one specific exemption for one group of crazy people? And isn't it kind of funny how that one now is causing all sorts of problems? Interesting, isn't it? All right. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, back after the top of the hour. Don't go anywhere. More of the What's Right show up next. Greetings, friends, and welcome back. The What's Right show is on, your place for common sense conservatism, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. here on News Talk 840 KXNT. We will be off on Monday. I'm sorry, the station is closed. No show. I'll be back on Tuesday, 1 o'clock at the usual hour. We'll catch up on everything we've learned over the weekend. Now look, folks, a lot of things going on at the CDC. I touched on this yesterday. And, as I think about the emotional and psychological frailty of the left, I've come to the realization that everything that I talk about with someone, any person, is going to start coming down to certain touchstones, certain like measurements of that person's sanity. I'll give you an example. We're not going to talk more about the trans thing. I'm just saying, for example, you can ask somebody, how many genders are there? If the person doesn't give you a straightforward response on that, they're not a serious person. If I have to describe to you the fundamental problem right now at the CDC, at the National Institute of Health, and other health organizations within the U.S. government under the Biden administration, frankly, during the Trump first term, they're filled with people who were just excessively woke. And they wokeified medicine. Like, you can't claim to me to be science-based and then tell me with a straight face that there are 300 genders. It just doesn't work. This is fundamental. And the people that are leaving or getting fired at these various agencies are writing big letters and, big documents, and these dissertations are getting picked up by the mainstream media. The mainstream media is having a field day with it because they are making the case that America is losing the best talent we have from important government positions. But the more we find out about these people, we find out they're bananas. Okay, so give you an example. And this was an exchange. Let me see when this was. I don't want to lead you astray. This was yesterday, last night, on CNN Newsnight with Abby Phillip. And Scott Jennings was on there. Okay, now Scott Jennings, they're talking about this guy, Dimitri Daskalakis. Now, he's the former director of the National Center for Immunization. Now, the immunizations right now, the schedule of childhood immunizations is under review. We have some problems with this. There are legitimate questions being asked about, are we over-vaccinating our kids? When I was little, I had a handful of vaccines. Now it's tripled, quadrupled. It's a little crazy. And along with increased immunization, there has been corresponding levels of autism. Now, again, correlation does not prove causation. I understand this, but it merits investigation. And RFK Jr. has pledged to do this. So this Dimitri guy, Dr. Dimitri Daskalakis, I think that's how he pronounces his name, writes this giant thing, this novella, reasons why he's leaving and that this is terrible and that Kennedy, RFK Jr., is a threat to public health and all this stuff. Okay. Now, pictures, of course, have emerged of Dr. Daskalakis in all sorts of BDSM where he appears to be a gay man, which is fine. But there's a lot of pictures of him doing some weird stuff, okay? Not exactly confidence inspiring. I'll believe it there. But Scott Jennings makes this great point. And notice the response of the entire panel, all the leftists on the CNN panel, in a cacophony of outrage, begin to jump all over Scott. And I'll tell you when we come back, I'll tell you after this clip why that is.
This is stuff that affects real people's lives, vaccines,
We're in National Immunization Awareness
immunization.
Month.
I hear the criticism from this person. I just have to say, he did use the term pregnant people in his resignation.
Oh, come on.
And I'm sorry, if that is like the way you're presenting information, I have questions about your credibility.
Scott, it's so amazing.
It's not a ruse. He really wrote it down.
It's a ruse because people are dying.
This guy's not credible to me. That's all I'm telling you.
Scott, are you serious?
Come on.
No, he is not credible.
No. Are you serious that this is
yes, he did write it.
That of all the things that we're talking about here, immunizations, vaccines, autism, the research about on communicable diseases, on cancer, and you are the most concerned about someone's use of the word people.
Yeah, because
that's the most important thing
because you were just complaining about the politicization of science, and I can't think of politicization of science more than that.
I have a question for you. Can somebody be a medical doctor and legitimately tell us that men can get pregnant? And if that physician, doctor, makes that claim with a straight face, do you want him or her treating you? And even a better question that I have, forget treating you. Do you want that person setting health policy for a country of 300 plus million people? Because here's where my fundamental common sense is kicking in, okay? I look at these people at the CDC, at the NIH, all the people that we got to know, unfortunately, because of COVID, a little too well. And I have a lot of contempt for them because I discovered very quickly that they were not the best and the brightest. Bringing it closer to home, I understand not every one of you is here in Las Vegas. During COVID here in Nevada, we had a governor who is objectively a moron. He thankfully was removed from office. Nevada here, the only state in the country that dumped a COVID lockdown governor. Okay? And we have Governor Lombardo, a Republican, to thank for that. But we had this idiot here named Steve Sisolak, a total low IQ bozo. Now, Steve, he kept us locked down and whatever. And he kept saying, I'm trusting the experts. I'm trusting the experts. And, we started looking, into who these experts were here in Nevada. And these like who? Some nincompoop somewhere with some BS degree setting policy that kept kids out of school, that saw a record number of young people disappear, never to return again, by the way, into the school system, disappear, that saw billions of dollars erased. Don't know if you know anything about Las Vegas and our economy here, a little dependent on something people call tourism. closing down casinos, and then dragging out, even after the reopen in June of 2020, dragging out the restrictions and this and that, making the fun of Las Vegas really pointless. The economic impact, the human impact, our children scarred by this, all because a low IQ, scared of his own shadow fool became governor because he amassed a little bit of political power in a little village called Vegas. And all of a sudden, the damage that he was able to do by virtue of listening to a few state employees, experts. This is a history we can't forget. Now, I grew up in a home of science. My mother is a scientific researcher. She's worked at Allergan and other big pharmaceutical companies. The top people, the real top talent, go into private industry. I'm sorry to say this. A government does not attract the best people. Now, what the government did wrong, primarily, in my view, is that it became a place for the activists to come to roost. It became a place that preferred and advanced activism over science. That is why you have somebody who's in charge of immunizations and setting health policy for the country talking about pregnant people. Okay? Probably thinks there are, 50 genders. And why is this relevant? Number one, everything that RFK Jr. is doing, the Trump administration is doing in these different departments, CDC, NIH, etc., Health and Human Services, all this is cleaning up decades of accumulated nonsense that has honestly put our country in harm's way. We're behind and antiquated in cancer research. We are probably over-vaccinating our kids. We have a food supply that's poisoning us. We have people that are fat. The answer is, get on Ozempic. There's a fix for that. There's another chemical fix. We've done it their way for years. We've done what they've wanted us to do for so long. Why don't we just do something different? Isn't the definition of insanity doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results? Well, we know that's what the definition of insanity is. The problem is that the insane people leading our country for so long can't look in the mirror and recognize their own fallibility. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome back. Great to see the emails coming in. Perusing these, some, of course, quite hostile. Well, I'm reaching people that disagree with me. That's good. And welcome to the program. Great to have you listening. Sam@what'srightshow.com is my email. At What's Right Sam on X, formerly known as Twitter. Do follow me there. Particularly if you're upset with what I say, because then you can respond to my posts. And you can tell me how wrong I am. And if you make a good argument, I'll respond. I like that. I enjoy that. I enjoy a dialogue. We do not have to always agree. Now, I guess I was mentioning COVID yesterday, how it radicalized me. It got me back on the air. I mentioned the genesis of leaving my show in LA, moving to Vegas, and then getting back to my radio passion. And I like that, I like that RFK Jr. is talking about COVID. I don't want the left to just say, well, it happened 5 years ago, Sam. It happened 5 years ago, and let's not look back. Let's look forward. I don't like that. There has to be accountability for that nonsense. And RFK Jr., I love this, was an interview. He sat down yesterday with Fox and Friends. Just as everything began popping at the CDC, you know, people were quitting. The director got fired. She's fighting the termination because, of course, that's what all of these fired losers are doing. No, I'm not getting out of the car, Mr. Police Officer. No, I'm not going to. No, I'm not. I'm not resisting. I'm not resisting. It's the same thing. It's the professional equivalent of it. What? The president fired me for my job that's under the executive branch? No, I'm not leaving. It's a wrongful termination. Well, anyway, not going to go particularly well. Anyway, RFK Jr. talked about the problems at the CDC, and he brought up COVID. And this was a very just good on him moment, because listen, if you're a parent and you're listening to me and your kids were at school during COVID, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and you know exactly what RFK Jr. is talking about here.
Now, the CDC has problems. You know, we saw the misinformation coming out of COVID. They got the testing wrong. They got the social distancing, the masks, the school closures that did so much harm to the American people. Today on CDC's website right now, they list the 10 top the 10 greatest advances in medical science, and one of them is abortion. Another is fluoridation, another is vaccines. So we need to look at the priorities of the agency. If there's really a deeply, deeply embedded, I would say, malaise at the agency. And we need strong leadership that will go in there and that will be able to execute on President Trump's broad ambitions.
If rates of autism in kids continue to go up, why not look for a root cause? Why not look to fix it? I think it goes into my broader criticism of the left. They want these pathologies, if we can call them that, right? They want these shortcomings. They want these weaknesses in our society. The more weak people, the more autism, the more government help is needed, the more government programs, and therefore the Democrats are able to grow their vast patronage networks across the country. It's what they do. If school districts need more autism support, it's a good thing. Those are more good-paying jobs for friends of top-ranked Democrats. Sorry, I'm a cynic. I've witnessed this. I just went to a school board. I was at someplace here in town for the Clark County School District, in kind of an office building of theirs. All these beautiful offices, all the support staff, all this stuff. It's a patronage operation. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. These are good-paying office jobs that are handed to people who are politically connected. That's what it is. So RFK Jr. makes a great point here. Now, there was another great moment in this interview on Fox and Friends where Brian Kilmeade asks him, he's talking about the shooter in Minneapolis. And he says, Kilmeade asks, okay, you're dealing with the person who's was transitioning, whatever. Are you going to be examining at all some of the drugs that are used in order to make that transitioning happening, to see if it plays a role? Because we also know there was a trans shooter in the Tennessee situation. As a matter of fact, there are multiple trans shooters in the past several years, 5 or 6 of them, depending on how you count them up. And here was RFK Jr.'s answer, which I think was important.
We're launching studies on the potential contribution of some of the SSRI drugs and some of the other psychiatric drugs that might be contributing to violence. You know, many of them on there have black box warnings that warn of suicidal ideation and homicidal ideation. So we can't exclude those as a culprit, and those are the kind of studies that we're doing.
It's reasonable. I know the left wants to paint RFK Jr. as some sort of a madman. But again, if we've had an exponential rise in these school shootings, don't we want to know if these kids are being fed drugs that are making them go crazy? Don't we want to also have a conversation about marijuana, about THC, and its effect on young and developing brains? We can't just, it's so reductive to say, what's the gun? Countries that have, by the way, big gun control, people go out with knives and butcher people. All right? You want to get the key thing that he says here, and it's you almost blink and you missed it. When you're looking at culprits in this, right? You're identifying root causes. That's really important. And so with all of that, RFK says the CDC is in trouble and that personnel changes are on the way.
This is what the attorney said. When CDC Director Susan Menarez refused to rubber stamp unscientific, reckless directives and fire dedicated health experts, she chose to protecting the public over serving a political agenda. For that, she has been targeted. So she says you have a political agenda. Deborah Horry, the chief medical officer, has resigned. The infectious disease director, David Jennings, I think, has resigned as well. Is this something that's caught you by surprise? What's your reaction to people that are getting a little worried?
I think that, no, it has not caught us by surprise. Again, I cannot comment on personnel issues, but the agency is in trouble, and we need to fix it, and we are fixing it, and it may be that some people should not be working there anymore.
Great. Why double down on failure? It's time for a rethink, and that is exactly what we voted for. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Welcome back, folks. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. All right, it's Friday. I know we've been covering some heavy topics. Normally, I do like to keep Fridays light, but just not been possible last few weeks. Plus, the Trump administration off to the races, working so hard, doing so many things each and every day, that it's difficult really to take a day off from covering it all. Now, one development this week that I want to record before we close the week out is the various reactions across the country to Trump's crime crackdown. Now, as we speak, Friday, August 29th, there are units being deployed, Homeland Security deployed into L.A. In fact, I was looking at a video this morning of units pulling into downtown L.A. This is an armed presence that we have not seen so far in the city of Los Angeles. Other blue cities getting targeted as well. Talk of Chicago being next, that there are units on the way and deploying in places around the city. And you've got the governors there, Governor Newsom and Mr. Pritzker in Illinois, who are just beside themselves over this. Now, one thing I wanted to get to before the week got away from us is the press conference with Muriel Bowser. The mayor of D.C. on Wednesday, 2 days ago, actually held a press conference expressing gratitude to the Trump administration for helping the city get more safe. Put this on the bingo card of things I did not expect to hear in 2025.
We greatly appreciate the surge of officers that enhance what MPD has been able to do in this city. The most significant thing that we are highlighting today is the area of crime that was most troubling for us in 2023. Now, we have driven it down over the last years, but I'm going to get my glasses so I can make sure I can see it correctly. But for carjackings, the difference between this period, this 20-day period of this federal surge and last year represents a 87% reduction in carjackings in Washington, D.C. We know that when carjackings go down, when the use of gun goes down, when homicide or robbery go down, neighborhoods feel safer and are safer. So this surge has been important to us for that reason.
Okay, so when carjackings go down, Robbie, people feel safer. Somebody call Captain Obvious. But she's thanking Trump. It's a very diplomatic Democrat answer, right? She's not thanking Trump for taking over her job, which is functionally what Trump has done, but she's thanking Trump for assisting MPD, the DC police, in aiding their efforts to fight crime. What Trump did is he took over the police department. The chain of command was taken away from the mayor and from the city council over to the president of the United States and the Department of Homeland Security. The problem is the leadership. The problem is that when you make, it doesn't matter, honestly, it does matter how many cops you have. You have to have a certain critical mass of police that are on duty at any time for a particular population center. That's a fact. But you can have all the cops you need, but if you don't have the political will to use those police officers in a judicious way, you're going to end up still with crime spiraling out of control, particularly where the police are being held back from being able to do what they need to do, i.e. get the bad guys. And this, can I tell you, this is the out-of-box thinking of the Trump administration. See, this is what happens when you put people in the government who understand the private sector, particularly real estate. Real estate people get this. I'll give you an example. Let me play the clip first. My brain is getting ahead of myself. Sean Duffy, Transportation Secretary. This was a post previously held by Mr. Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg. Buttigieg told Sean Duffy when they were doing their little meeting, Trump won the election, so there's a transition, and, Trump names Duffy as the replacement for Pete Buttigieg, the incoming transportation secretary. So as is customary, the two gentlemen met. And Buttigieg told Duffy, do you remember this, Robbie? Do you know what he told him? He said the transportation department runs itself. From the guy that had derailment after derailment while he was aspirationally lactating for his firstborn child on paternity leave, whatever the hell that was. The department ran itself. This is what Duffy's. The guy said the department runs itself, and he's like, "Well, I don't think so," because Duffy now is coming in and making some changes. Amtrak, main train station in Washington, D.C. Listen to what they did.
And, what can people expect the changes to be?
So first off, DOT owns Union Station, and we've had a lot of partners that we've subleased to or we've leased to. We're going to take it back, and we're going to drive out the homelessness. We're going to drive out the crime, and we are going to, I think, bring in more retailers. I think more customers. It'll be better revenue. And again, this is our capital city. It should be beautiful. Yeah. And the president wants a beautiful capital. I want a beautiful capital. And so this plan is going to make Union Station represent the president's vision of what America can and should look like.
Train stations are transportation hubs. People go through there. You get foot traffic. If it's beautiful and safe, you can add retail. If you police it and keep the undesirable elements out, this real estate becomes more valuable. People in the government don't get this more often than not. They just view it as a government bill. It's a train station. That's what it is. Trump looks at it and he goes, this is a leasing opportunity. This is a building that has thousands of people go through it every day. These people are commuters. They have jobs. They have money. These people are waiting for a train, getting off a train, want to grab a coffee, want to grab a sandwich, want to maybe buy a gift or something. They're leaving the city. They're coming to the city. They're tourists, whatever. Everything I just mentioned is a business. They can operate a store inside the station, make money, and in turn pay rent to who? You and me. Well, the federal government, but, by extension, right? That's revenue for the government. And that's money that goes into the people's purse. This is all good stuff. I don't know what Pete Buttigieg was doing. Honestly, I could see that he just thought the thing ran itself. Yeah, I guess he went on bike rides, and he hung out. But it was kind of like a lot of these Biden people were these no-show jobs. Everybody was just sitting around looking pretty. Meanwhile, a handful of truly evil deep state cretins were driving the country into the ground, running the auto pen, and propping up Biden every once in a while since people were asking questions about his mental fitness. So Duffy's onto something. And it's not, again, if I'll give you an example here in downtown Las Vegas. This is how private sector people think versus the public sector. So, we have this arts district area where my office is, and it's slowly starting to gentrify. But of course, there's homelessness and problems like this, whatever. Now, very important for the police to keep those elements out. But now that we have successfully got not one, but 3 concurrent residential developments, low-rise and high-rise towers here in the neighborhood, we're going to have residential, real residential, not just an apartment or a house here and there. And these people are going to live here, hundreds of them. They are going to walk the streets. They're going to go and patronize the businesses. We're going to get a critical mass of normal, wage-earning professionals living in the area. And I predict over the next 2 years, you're going to see all the kind of street urchin weird element that was here kind of go away. Because the one thing about the druggies and the criminally insane homeless people is they don't like a lot of people walking around. They don't like a lot of scrutiny. They like to do what they do in the shadows. They're going to move a few blocks. I'm going to move east. I can't move west. The freeways here. This is a very micro example. And so it's a chicken and the egg. To make the buildings work, to make them sell, the city has to come in and get the homeless people off the streets. And trust me, the police are doing a great job of that. Now, in Union Station, you're not going to get the tenants in if you're not providing a clean building. So first comes what? First comes the cleanup. You get the homeless out. You get all the druggies out. You get all the criminals out. You patrol everything. You've got the National Guard in there with rifles. Second step, you clean it up. Third step, you get in some great new tenants. Everything's hunky-dory. Things start taking off. And then it becomes self-perpetuating as long as you maintain, the policing levels and keep an eye on things and don't let them get bad again. When you look at San Francisco, the things that happen in San Francisco, it's so sad in the last 11 years, 12 years. The political will that brought about tolerance of open air drug crimes, of public indecency, of public urination, etc., right, slowly drove out billions of dollars in business from the city. And then COVID came in, took away the offices, the foot traffic and everything, and once beautiful streets where multi-million-dollar buildings were built turned into druggy wastelands. And Trump understands he's a real estate guy. We've got to reclaim our country block by block. You'd think all these mayors would be on board with it. You'd think they would all be saying what Muriel Bowser is. Not so fast, actually. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Back in a moment. I really see so much of what Trump is doing as getting back to the basics, right? Clean up crime, get the economy moving, secure the border, put America in its rightful place of strength on the world stage, and wait for the golden age to come. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. It's interesting. I saw some polling back and forth on whether Mamdani is going to win in New York. I still think he's likely to prevail, regardless of how that race works out. I did have a thought about this earlier in the week. I tweeted it out. I put it out on X. I meant to talk about it the next day, and then, of course, all hell has broken loose this week, so I haven't gotten to it. By the way, follow me on X, at What's Right Sam. And sometimes you guys send me videos on X, and we end up using them as clips here in the program. So send me good stuff that you have. Please do. Follow me on there so I can see what you post and bring it to my attention, because we absolutely do take great material from those of you that send it. So thank you for that. Now, we as conservatives are making, and it's a cell phone here. I've made the same mistake, I think. So this is a little bit of therapy here. We're making a mistake calling Zohran Mamdani a communist. I'm not saying that he's not a communist. He is. He's a socialist communist. He is a dangerous leftist. But when we call him a communist, for most people, this is evocative of a failed system from really the 1950s and 60s. Maybe from the early aughts, from Venezuela, understanding socialism there under Hugo Chavez, deteriorated a once wealthy country. But even that requires going back 20 years. These are failings that many people view wrongly, but still view as having happened so far in the past that perhaps today some of these ideas can be rehabilitated. This is dangerous. When you look at what Trump is doing with crime cleanup, there are places where Zohran Mamdani's policies are currently in effect. Defund the police is in effect in places like Chicago, in places like Minneapolis. It's failing currently. You don't have to go back to Eastern Europe post-World War II. You don't have to go back to China starving. You know, China under communism was so bad off. People were eating people. Cannibalism was practiced because of the famines. Communism failed so spectacularly that the Chinese communists quit practicing communism and turned on the capitalist spigot in order to save themselves. But that's all in the past. You're not going to appeal. Literally, what Zohran Mamdani wants to do is failing currently. There are state-run grocery stores around the country, and one by one, they've all failed or are failing. We've tried the defund police. We've tried to go woke on prosecutors. One a big fixation of Mamdani's is to go and reduce, basically eliminate all misdemeanor crimes. Going easy on criminals is practiced all over the country in blue cities and to disastrous and deleterious effect. So that's what we ought to focus on. He is yesterday's news. That actually, if I was going to give any advice to his opponents, is I would focus on the fact that he's not the latest and greatest thing. He's literally a fad that is on its way out. And these New York liberals are so unbelievably dumb that they have decided to go with what was in style 5 years ago. Zohran Mamdani is Summer of George, July, August of 2020. Now, the better part is, of course, by the way, you think these people are stupid. You have no idea how dumb some people are. This was last Sunday. A Mamdani supporter went out there, the interview, doing interviews on the street, right? So a Mamdani supporter gets asked, what do you like about his policies? Now, this is just, listen to this absolute insanity.
I'm all for Mamdani. What's your favorite policy of his? You know? I don't know enough. But you're a supporter and you don't know his policies? I'm like just a sort of a general, like, go-getter. What if he just supported, like, getting rid of all gay people and you didn't know that? Well, that'd be crazy, but I would probably hear about that one. But I appreciate you guys. Would you support him then? No, I wouldn't. He is a Muslim. You guys, just keep saying that.
There's like no idea. And by the way, it goes on and on. It's just a taste of it. The girl finally is like, oh, well, I just don't really know anything. I'm just, it's all fine, whatever. It's just, I'm putting this out there. At the very moment that Trump is demonstrating what old school policing, broken windows theory policing does, and how it can fix crime-ridden, blighted areas. You've got New York preparing to go headfirst into another, and basically the darkest chapter of its history, potentially. This brings me to a kind of a higher level observation about all this. Trump's takeover of the District of Columbia, of the policing, bringing in the National Guard, threatening to do the same, and perhaps doing the same and cleaning up cities like Chicago, like LA, is a high-level persuasion of people that are somewhere in the middle, who aren't as whack as this girl, but they aren't you and I. They're kind of Trump agnostic. Maybe they don't like Trump, think he's orange and slightly Hitler-esque, but they'll come to accept over the next couple years that their neighborhood is safer. They'll come to acknowledge that bullets flying through their neighborhood at night, hitting innocent bystanders, isn't good. And that Trump's solution actually did something. We're in this era of talk is cheap. Because cheap talk, as, by the way, epitomized by Gavin Newsom, who is all talk and no substance, cheap talk has been the fuel of the Democratic Party. All blah, 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 talk, 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 make it sound good, platitudes, vapid points. Meanwhile, America's deteriorated. America's become less safe. Americans have become less wealthy. We've all become more dependent. It's helped the Democrats, but it hasn't helped us. This is a high-level persuasion of a majority of the country that the Trump way is the right way. It's beautiful to behold. Let's see how it goes. All right, folks, I'll see you back on Tuesday. Have a great 3-day weekend. Labor Day. Happy Labor Day. I'll see you soon.